Hello and welcome to the launch events for the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership Threshold Guide. This guide will replace the vulnerability checklist previously used within North Yorkshire. And what we'd like to do is ask if you do use the old vulnerability checklist that you now adopt this new threshold guide and remove any old previous documents. We will circulate the list to the to the threshold guide at the end of this webinar so that you can have that to have a look through. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. So please share with your teams and colleagues the information that you've learned today. You can use the material and we will provide the PowerPoint slides as well for you to share. We'll be accepting any questions that you might have throughout the session, and what we'd like to do is encourage you to put these into the chat box, and then we'll stop at appropriate times to have a look at these questions and pose the questions to our guest presenters. My name is James Parks and I'm the manager of the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership, and this morning I'll act as the facilitator of today's session, trying to keep the presenters on track to finish in an hour and a half's time. We've got a number of speakers, and what I will do is introduce each of the speakers at the beginning of each session rather than doing all at the beginning here. So before we dive into the sessions, what I'd like to do is bring to your attention some things that are happening during June that relate to Safeguarding Children's Partnership and organisations who are our relevant agencies, which you will be one member of the Safeguarding Partners. So Safeguarding Week will take place on the 21st of June to the 25th of June, and this provides a variety of topics on offer that will cover the footprint of North Yorkshire and York, along with colleagues from East Riding. The children's, adults and community safety partnerships across those localities have been working over the last few months to bring you a full webinar virtual conference. So each day will feature different webinars of different interests, from domestic abuse, non-accidental injury, hoarding, fire safety, online fraud. There's a variety of different topics. You can book on these sessions on our website if you go to our homepage, and Nat will kindly put a link into the chat for you to share, but hopefully you're already being made aware of this event that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Our next manager masterclass finishes Safeguarding Week on the 25th of June, and will feature colleagues from our Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner's Office telling us all about the services that they commission and deliver across North Yorkshire for children, young people and their families. The masterclasses are on the last Friday of every month, and we hold those between 12 and 1. So if you haven't attended one, I would recommend that you do. And we choose different topics each month of importance that we feel that we want to share with our partners. And last but not least is the Hidden Harm campaign, which is a campaign that we've been dealing with and working with through COVID. It's looking at the signs of abuse and neglect, and how we can encourage everyone within the communities, within our professional networks, to really kind of be the eyes and ears and reach out to individuals that we feel may be in need of additional help and support, and to protect those who are being either abused or neglected as well. So there's loads of assets and information available on our website around the hidden harm work, and we just encourage people to share that information far and wide. If you're at a school, put it in your school newsletter. Make sure that there's some information that we can share with GP surgeries, with organisations such as the police, fire service, our community and voluntary sector organisations as well. In terms of the agenda for this session today, we're going to look at obviously the threshold guide, so that we're launching the threshold guide today. We'll also look at the local protocol from North Yorkshire. We're going to be touching on the early help strategy and just really refreshing people's memories and minds about what that strategy is, and how you can play your part in ensuring that we get the right support to the right individual at the right time. Then we'll touch on about what makes a good referral and how to ensure, if you do need to make that referral into services, how the information you put on that form will assist the teams who review and assess those particular cases. And then we're going to look at the Solihull parenting programme and give you some information about this programme that has been launched over the next 3 years in North Yorkshire. So the next stage is I'm going to play a promotional video. We've done 2 of these events, and we appreciate, so for some of you, you won't be able to see or hear the video. Don't worry, we will circulate this video out to you separately. So if you do find that you don't hear anything or don't see anything, or you see something but can't hear it, then just sit back for a couple of minutes. It's only about 3.5 minutes, and you'll be able to pick up the narration from myself once that video is finished. But as I say, we will circulate this video for you to watch via our YouTube channel. So I hope it works for the majority of you, and apologies beforehand for those that it doesn't work. It's to do with some bandwidth on computers. We will look into that and see if there's anything we can do from our end. But I think given that everyone's working from home and different offices, it's just one of those technical issues that are out of our control. So as I say, sit back about 3.5 minutes, and we will watch this video that's been produced.
We know that you want us to grow up safe, happy, healthy, and able to achieve our goals in life. To do this, we need our families to get the right help, at the right time, from the right people. Where possible, we want this to be from the people who already know us and our families. Talking about the things that worry us can be a really scary thing to do, but it's easier to talk to people that we already know. We want them to be honest with us about the things that worry them too. Sometimes the words people use can be really confusing. Sometimes people talk about worries. Sometimes they talk about concerns. And sometimes they talk to me about other people's worries and concerns. It can be really confusing. We want you to talk to us using words we understand. Signs of Safety is a really handy tool because everybody who uses it uses the same words. What are we worried about? What's working well? What needs to happen? And then a scaling question. This is really important because it's an easy way for me to tell people how worried I am about something, or how well I think something is working. I just decide a score between 0 and 10. Scaling is good because it helps me to see when things are getting better, but it also helps me tell people when things are getting worse. It helps people think about things that are good as well as the things that are worries. Just because something is going wrong, it doesn't mean everything is going wrong. All families have problems sometimes and might need some help to get things back on track. We will see lots of different people who we trust to keep us and our families safe, happy and healthy. All families are different, and we know that you will help us celebrate all of the things that are good about our families, helping us to be strong when we need to be, resilient when things are hard, and enjoy being part of our local community. There are places where all children go to get help, like schools, libraries, and the doctors. We need you to notice when something is upsetting or worrying us, so we can get help to stop our problems getting worse. We need you to care about us and work together to give us the best help possible. We might have some worries too, but not really know how to say them. The most important thing is that you keep working with our families and with each other. Keep helping each other, and most importantly, keep helping us. North Yorkshire is a lovely place to grow up, so thank you for helping us to enjoy it. For more information, you can look at the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership Threshold document.
So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour. I appreciate some of you may not have been able to see or hear that video, but for those that have, it would be great to just get your initial thoughts. It's the first time that we've shared these videos within these launch events, so it'll be great just to kind of understand from someone seeing it afresh, kind of how you felt about the video, if it gets those right messages across. So feel free to put anything in the chat, any observations, that would be really welcome. I'd just like to say a big thank you to Children and Young People Service within the local authority who helped us write and design the video and the narrative to accompany the Threshold guide. So I'd like to hand over now to Danielle Johnson, who's the Senior Head of Safeguarding and Partnerships for the local authority within the Children and Families Service. So over to yourself, Danielle.
Thanks, James, and good afternoon, everyone. Just to give a little bit of context around my role, I lead on the multi-agency screening team, which is where referrals come into. They're based at County Hall in North Allerton, and also the family assessment teams across North Yorkshire, and do lots of work with the partnership and lead on things such as missing from home and care and exploitation. So that's it in a nutshell, really. If you could go to the first slide, please, James. I am just going to turn my camera off because it tends to kick me out and there's lots on the call. Okay, so as James has said, we've updated the what we would call the vulnerability checklist into the Threshold guidance. We know that we know now that checklists don't work so well, so we've updated it and brought it in line in the way around the way we work in North Yorkshire. And it's called the Framework for Decision Making. It's in line with our overarching strategy of Young in Yorkshire about keeping children and young people safe, happy, healthy, and achieving. Working together tells us that we have to have one. And in North Yorkshire, that's about ensuring that children and families receive the right help at the right time, and most importantly, by the right person. It's about a joined up approach in the way that we work with children, young people and their families, and a joined up approach to enable decision making that's consistent about the safety and well-being of children. The document helps us to understand the different levels of intervention needed to support families, keep children safe, but build on strengths and overall outcomes for children and young people. The document itself within the guidance includes a page on the way that we work with children and families. I'm sure many of you know across North Yorkshire we use signs of safety as an approach. It very much is a strengths-based approach, relational in practice, and for families and ourselves, it gives us a shared language and a shared responsibility around decision making. It helps us to understand the past and present concerns, recognise safety and strengths within family, but be clear about what needs to happen next, and the use of scaling questions. And we get feedback from families that they find these helpful in terms of the next steps and what needs to happen. So within the document, there's a number of helpful questions that can be used, and more information can be found on the partnership website about signs of safety. I think the one thing I would want you to take away really is just to allow some time for reflection, in that many families welcome our help, but for lots of them, you know, professional involvement is very difficult. They find it very shameful. So we need to reflect and think about what that would be like for our family, and is the way that we're working how we would be expected to work with if it was our family. It includes the continuum of need, and I'm not going to talk too much about that because I know Barbara is going to talk about that a little bit more. But it is there, and I'm sure that's not new to you because it's within the early help strategy, and it has 4 levels of need. universal, early help, and when things get more complex, child in need. And for a small proportion of children, that's those who are at risk or suffering from significant harm. We want to help families at the earliest opportunity to prevent concerns from escalating. But we know that some of them move up and down this spectrum. Within the document itself, it does have examples of the features underneath each one, so what it might look like. And that was really feedback from professionals who said that they found that helpful. We can't put everything in there because what we deal with is pretty complex at times, and they may have features across the different levels. So it's to go alongside and just help and give a framework, but to use alongside your professional judgment. The role of the designated safeguarding lead, I'm sure that you're all aware of that, because you will have a lead in your organisation who on safeguarding matters to support really us with decision making around concerns for a child's welfare or safety. So conversations with the lead should be used to gain advice, reflection, and determine what the next steps are. And we've got to remember that aspect of professional curiosity. We need to be curious all the time and challenge one another, thinking from multiple perspectives to determine the best next steps, but understanding the life of the child and the family. There is a section on information sharing, which at times we all find quite difficult. We've included the 7 golden rules. So if we stick within them, we shouldn't really go wrong with that. I think it's important that when we're open and honest with the children and families that we're working with, we can't go wrong if we're doing that. But there may be times that we're not able to do that because it may place a child at risk of harm, and we understand that, completely understand it. I think it's important to remember that often when we're going out to see a family from a children's social care perspective, that if we have been honest and open from day one, they're more likely to cooperate and more likely to have insight into what needs to happen and more likely to make positive change when we're doing things with them rather than to them. We've included the consultation line. So in the east of the county, that has been running for a little while, and we've decided to take the opportunity to roll that out across the county. So from the 1st of July, that will go live. We would still expect that people use their safeguarding leads within their organisation, the early help consultant, but it is available for people and will be available between the hours of 9 and 4. And the number's on there, and there is information on the Safeguarding Partnership website about it. You will be put through to a member of the team within the multi-agency screening team, and we won't take the child's details or we won't be recording that. It is for consultation with the aim of supporting you in identifying what the best next steps are through a conversation with them. And it doesn't replace current safeguard. If you want to make a referral or need to make a referral, you should follow the normal processes, and it shouldn't replace that. Taking the opportunity here is really to promote the professional resolutions practice guidance. That's available again on the partnership website. At times we won't agree on the best next steps for a child or their family, and I just wanted to say that that's okay. At times we will disagree, and we want to have conversations and resolve things at the earliest opportunity. But that guidance is there. If you're not aware of it, take the opportunity to become familiar with that. But overall, let's keep talking. We know when we work better together, we deliver a better service for children and their families. Upon the website, we also have a number of one minute guides. So if you're not aware of them, go on and have a look at them. We continue to build on them, to keep going back to them. We have ones on information sharing, how to make a referral, and then on certain areas of practice, maybe areas that you're not as familiar with, or we maybe don't deal with a lot within our work. but it will give you that information in just a 1-minute guide. If you have practitioners within your service who are dealing with a particular issue, it's easy access to information on one page. In terms of the local protocol for assessment, that will be available to you on the website. It's currently being updated, and that really sets out what happens when cases are referred into children's social care. So when a case comes in, when a referral is sent, we call that a contact, and that comes into our customer resolutions team, and it's passed to the multi-agency screening team. So the multi-agency screening team is a team of professionals that work together to screen those referrals and make decisions in one working day on what the best next steps are. That one working day is statutory, a statutory timescale that we need to meet. And within the multi-agency screening team, that's made up of social care, early help, health, police, and with the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service currently providing some input into that and screening discussions. Because for some cases, they will come together as a partnership and screen those cases together. I've put the mission statement on there to give you an understanding of what they're aiming to do, using signs of safety and working together, bringing their professional skills together with the overall aim of making the right decision for the child and young person at the right time. So across North Yorkshire Children and Families Service, social care and early help, we have a model of practice with the aim of keeping children safe and families together wherever possible. And it's called Strengths in Relationships. We work with one principle, which is about systemic working in practice. So our practitioners across the service are trained in systemic practice. And that is very much a relational-based model because we know it's the relationships that make a difference. When we get feedback from children and their families, we often talk about that person that's made a difference, the person from school, the person from early help, a social worker. It's somebody that has had a relationship with them that has made a difference. We use signs of safety as the framework, and as I've said before, it gives us that shared language and that shared responsibility around decision making, shared risk. And we have 3 intentional behaviours, and that's working to build on family strengths. It's working to build relationships, and then we have a number of restorative solutions. So we have a restorative academy in North Yorkshire who do pick up a number of areas of work, and one of them, for example, is that we have care experienced young people who work with other young people who are looked after and within the system. We have family finding, and we're trying to use that much earlier on in the service. So we have a number of champions across the county, and what they're doing is working to build those family networks for children and their families as early as possible, to create safety within the network and build relationships for children. So we know the more relationships and healthy relationships a child has, the more able they are to deal with the difficulties that they're facing within their lives. We have a family group conferencing service, and there are certain stages within a case that we would expect to involve the family group conferencing service. So, for example, if a case is progressing to a child protection conference, we would always look to refer into that service to bring the family together alongside any child protection process. We have a lifelong links programme, and that's really working at the other end of the spectrum for children who are in care. We know that often children in care lose contact with their networks, and when they become young adults, have very limited involvement from services because they've now turned into their early 20s. So it's about building those connections for them that can go on and support them throughout their lives. And then we have 6 objectives, and that's what we're working to as across the service. That's about building long-term stability. It's about improving resilience, and it's about reducing time in care. overall, in terms of the, sorry, James. In terms of the Children Act, it's about least intervention into children's lives and building relationships. So across the service, that's what we're working towards, and that's our practice model across North Yorkshire. Once a case has gone into the multi-agency screening team and it goes into social care, it will go into a social work team. So you'll know them as safeguarding teams, I would imagine, and we have 9 of them across the county. More recently, we have taken the opportunity to change the name of the teams, and that's been due to the feedback from some families who struggle with that term safeguarding, and particularly when they're receiving support under Section 17. So for a disabled child, for example, they struggle with that word, and it does impact upon our interventions and engagement. So we've changed that to reflect what we do, and that's the family assessment and support team. So those teams will hold cases under Section 17, child in need cases, and they also hold child protection. When a child enters into care, they would transfer to a looked after children's team, or what we did know was looked after children's teams. Those team names have changed as well to Child Permanence and Family Reunification Team to reflect what they do. They're seeking permanency for children and family reunification wherever they can. Our placement teams across the county, so our fostering teams, have changed to Placement Support and Together team. And our virtual school team, which is our virtual head teacher and the team underneath her, have moved to the Achieving in Life team, which is doing what it says on the tin. So that's an overview of the teams across North Yorkshire and of the multi-agency screening team. Thank
you very much, Danielle. We've just got looks like one question. If you do have a question, please feel free to put it into the chat. This is just regarding, it's interesting to hear that there's nobody representing education in MAST, and given that that we spend more time with children and families than any other agency, is there a right balance?
Yeah, so we have explored it actually on a number of occasions around education within the multi-agency screening team. The challenge has been for us is the number of schools across North Yorkshire and how we do that. However, we have got a meeting actually at the end of the month to further discuss and explore that a little bit more. We would like education in there. It's about how we approach that and how we do it collectively.
Thank you, Danielle. Hopefully that's answered your question. I think it's Miss Appleton. So thank you. I've got, please put them in the chat. I think I've just dropped out there. So I'd like to pass on to our next presenter, who is Barbara Marigold, who is the Head of Early Help for the local authority.
Thank you, James. So I'm here today just really to revisit the early help strategy, and so there's no update. We've currently got the strategy that was launched just over 18 months ago. But as part of these slides, you'll see on one of the end slides, there is an opportunity now that we've just launched a survey to understand how you feel the strategy has been embedded across the county, any feedback that you'd like to give. So I'll cover that at the end, but just to make you aware of that. So for the early help strategy, it is a partnership document and it sits on the Safeguarding Children website. The strategy clearly defines the responsibility of everyone to respond to early help, because it is about putting that right support in at the right time and the right place. We do in North Yorkshire have an early help team who actually can provide support that strategy, but the key is really thinking about where we can meet that need at the earliest opportunity, because as Danielle said, it's about those relationships. And if we can support a child and their family with the key relationships around them that they know, rather than putting in another service, then that's really the key to the way we want to work. So you will have seen the continuum of support. This sits within the early help strategy, but now is also as part of the threshold document. The key areas that I want to really cover today is, first of all, the universal. So this is where we've not identified any additional need or support, but it is recognising that support around that child. So that could be within the school education setting the child's attending, but also in that community and that community support network that can support that child. So that's a number of the voluntary sector. It could be even some of the activities that they sit in the community that child and family can attend. So then if we start to look at level 2, so this is the yellow box. So this, when we were developing the strategy, we looked at this as in 3 areas. We've got 2A, which is the single agency, 2B, team around the family, and then 2C, the whole family intervention. The reason for this is that if we're looking at when we want to put that support in, it feels quite a large area just to put into a vulnerability too, but it's thinking about providing that support at the right time to stop those concerns escalating and then moving into the higher tiers of vulnerability. So for 2C, we do have our early help team, part of children and families, and where we do see that concerns are escalating and it's felt that it can't be held within a local multi-agency team, that's when you may want to request support. But prior to that, we have got 2 other areas that we feel really need to focus on. So this is the early help assessment. We do have on the Safeguarding Partnership website a template for an early help assessment. But the key for this assessment is making sure that it's completed at the earliest opportunity, and it's considering that holistic, so the framework, the triangle of support framework, it's thinking about all elements of what support is needed to meet that child. What we ask as a local authority is that when somebody is considering an early help assessment, an agency, it's then actually thinking of communicating with the local authority through your early help consultants to actually let us know that you're considering an early help assessment. The reason for this is to prevent duplication, because what we don't want to do is create more than one plan on a child. So it's looking at, are there already services involved within children and families before we start that assessment. So who completes an early help assessment? As we've said, the early help assessment, it's thinking about who has those key relationships with that child and their family. Who is it that child feels that they can talk to, that they can go to, and also their family. So often we would see this as part of if a child is attending school or an early years setting or another organisation where that child feels that they're able to talk. So it can be anybody that completes an early help assessment. It is the holistic assessment, and it's really looking at what support is already in place, what is working well for that child, but then what are we worried about? And what we would expect as part of the assessment is at the end of it, there is a plan. So the assessment is a planning tool. We've provided a template, but it doesn't mean that you have to use that template to complete an early help assessment, but it's a holistic strength-based assessment, which at the end of it, you would then look at coordinating a plan. It's to be done with the child and the family. So it's not an assessment we would do without talking. We would talk to the family, we would ask them if they would like an assessment, and then we would sit down with them to look at how we can work together to support that child. So when an agency is completing an early help assessment, it might be immediately or as part of that process or at the end when you're pulling together a plan that you actually determine that actually yourself as a single agency won't be able to meet the needs of that child. So it's then thinking, can you bring together a group of agencies who would support that need? And what we would expect is those agencies would sit within the plan. So that's when you think about pulling together a team around the family. Now, pre-COVID, I think there was very much that concept that a team around the family was everyone sat in a room together, actually talking with the family and the child about the needs. But what we have identified is that now that we've explored more the ability to have that blended approach of using some online tools as well, that it may be that it's just that person who's got the key relationship with that child and the parent, the child, sat together to have a meeting, but that other agencies can join that meeting by dialing in. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to all together to come together in a room to have that team around the family. The idea of the team around the family is to put together a plan. If at the end of that plan you feel that things are escalating and that you may need some more support from Children and Family Service, it would be then that we ask you to talk to your early help consultant. The further slide, it does give you details of your early help consultants if you're not aware of them in your locality. But they, at any time as you're undertaking the assessment or the team around the family, they can support you in doing that, but they can also talk to you about if you feel it would then be appropriate to make a referral into Children and Families. If you've got that assessment and the plan, as I've said before, you can then use that as your referral form going forward to make a referral rather than having to put all that information onto a generic referral form. So to support you with undertaking the early help assessment, running a team around the family, but also thinking about other tools that you could use to support yourself as an agency to support that child and family, we've developed a virtual training programme. This is led and coordinated by our early help consultant team, but we've got a number of agencies that actually also provide training as part of that plan. It is virtual, so it means that anybody can book on it. You'll see the link there to details of the plan. You may not be able to read all the details on this slide, but that is a programme of events that runs, and it runs throughout the year, but we do termly programmes where you're able to attend some training to support you delivering the early help. If you feel that there's some training that you require that isn't on there that would assist, then you can talk to our consultants about that. And what we'll do is we'll look at how we can work with you to develop that training. So the list of early help consultants, they are locality based. So we've got Central, East and West. So those are the contact details if you did want to speak to them, if you're undertaking an early help assessment and you want support, or if you just really want to talk about what support you require. So as I discussed at the beginning, there is a review of the strategy and how it's been implemented into North Yorkshire. So please do, I encourage you to take part in that survey. I've talked about the virtual training package. We will be moving this on to NYES and also continuing to further develop that. We've got a number of other agencies coming on board with that training programme. We'll continue to embed learning of the blended approach into the service delivery going forward. And also, we've now introduced a universal Solihull parenting programme for parents, which Rachel is going to talk about later in this session.
Thank you, Barbara. So we've got a few questions coming up in the chat. So if we just take one of the first questions is, can I just double check, should we speak to our early help consultant before beginning an early help assessment?
Yes, we would ask you to do that, and the reason for that is it may be that that child already has a plan. They may be open to services that you're not aware of. So if you talk to the early help consultant, they will be able to have a look if there's any plans already open before you start to undertake another early help assessment. Because on occasions it is that when you ask that question to a family, they may not understand what's already open.
Thank you. The next question we've got is, do you need to begin a new assessment if a family has had support in the past, or would you be able to access the earlier plan and develop it?
I think that's in discussion really with the family. So it would be talking to the family about what they want to do. It would be useful to go over what was put in place, because sometimes it's a good opportunity to recap with the family what they already did that worked. But if there are new worries, then it would be it could either be building on that plan, or if you think there's significant worries that weren't in the previous plan, it would then be putting a new assessment in place. But absolutely, you can just build on the plan if there's one there that the parents feel fits.
Thank you. The next question looks at the framework. It says that it goes from no support at 1 to early help at 2. Before things get to 2, there would normally be some significant support from schools. Does this need to be captured in the process, and the schools will have not referred until they have provided support?
So when you think about an early help assessment, it is a holistic assessment. So if the concerns are just about education and it's support that's already being put in place to support that child's development, then we wouldn't say that you would have done an early help assessment. The early help assessment is then considering all elements. So it's looking at not just education, but what else may be having an impact, or what other needs are there for the child. So that's the point. So we're not saying that the support wouldn't be in place in the universal, but it's when you start to think about other areas involving bringing the parents in to look at what the parents and yourself can work together. So it would be that point that we would see an early help assessment.
Thanks, Barbara. And just going back to the previous question around the access to previous plans, we've just got a question in terms of how would you access a previous plan?
Well, we don't. If the early help assessment has just been held by yourselves as a single agency or a team around the family, that plan would be with yourself and the family. As a local authority, we don't need to see any plans. The only time we would ask to see the assessment and the plan is if you're thinking of actually then referring to a children and family service. All we ask when you've got an early help assessment in place is you let us know it's in place with the child, but certainly we wouldn't need to see that plan. So it would be looking at who was the key agency who worked with the family and held that plan, and talking to the family about, is that something that they would like to share with you.
Thank you. And the next question is, what happens when parents do not engage with us in school? So read the early help assessment. We're told that early help assessment 2A must be completed before early help support can be allocated to C, but without parental engagement, this is quite difficult.
Yeah, and I think that would be the same for ourselves as an early help team. So it would be looking at working together. So that's where it's key, those conversations with your early help consultants about what we can do. If the family's reluctant to engage, I mean, it may be that that's because there is a bit of conflict between the parent and yourself, that things that relationships perhaps have been slightly damaged. And that's something that the consultant could help with anyway, could give you some advice, look at how we can support. We're not saying that we wouldn't take a referral directly into 2C, but for us as an early help service, it's also that we would need to look at how we can also engage with the family, and it's whether that family would want to engage with us. We would always be looking at consent before we opened up as a 2C with an early help anyway.
Okay, and then the last question, I'm just running out of time. We will try and answer any outstanding questions. It's just, can any agency can the agency completing the early help assessment be voluntary sector rather than statutory? And I suppose the simple answer is anyone can undertake an early help assessment and lead on that process if they've identified that need. So if you're a health professional, voluntary sector organisation, a school, everybody's got the duty to, or the responsibility to take action and support these families. Our speaker is Jess Marquardt, who is the Group Manager for Access and Multiple Vulnerabilities within the local authority. So I'll hand over to Jess. Thank you.
Fab, thanks, James. So as James said, I'm the North Yorkshire Group Manager for Access and Multiple Vulnerabilities. What that means in kind of real talk is that I oversee the front door team, so the MAST team, and I'm also responsible for overseeing the work of the specialist social workers who focus on exploitation across the county. A couple other things that fall under my portfolio are young carers, private fostering, and little bits such as that. So Louise Giles, the team manager, she presented yesterday, so that's why her name is on the presentation. So I was hoping today to go through what makes a good referral or contact, just for the purposes of this this training session. I'll use the terms interchangeably because in MAST we talk about it as a contact when it lands on our front door, but I know that the Universal Referral Form talks about it as if it's a referral. So there's 3 different ways that you can refer into children and family services. There's the Universal Referral Form, which has recently changed. You may have noticed that it's gotten a bit bigger. Some of the questions that we're asking are a lot more strength-based. I think the first question we actually ask is around who is in this child's network. And that's to reflect some of the changes that have been happening within children and families. And I know Danielle spoke about the practice model and the way that we look for strengths within families and look at ways to build upon that. Because if we're always looking at risks and things that aren't going so well, how are we meant to build stability and safety if we're not looking for that straight away? So the second way is through the early help assessment. So if you've done an early help assessment and you think, actually, I've spoken to the early help consultant, I've spoken to my designated safeguarding lead, and we need to step this up a little bit further into either the early help service or through to children's social care, because you've seen where there might be a need for Section 17 support, you would use your early help assessment as a referral form, and it would indicate that the family have consented to that, as well as the views of the early help consultant. We have a lot of families or members of the public or anonymous people that call us up via the customer service centre, and that's the number there, the 780 780. Also, if it's an urgent call, you can contact that number. You might be asked to complete the referral form afterwards because, as we all know, during an urgent incident, you might only provide a little bit of information, such as, the real concerns that are happening right there. And the written referral form allows you to add a lot more background to help us make the right decision for that family. And I'd just like to touch on the point that if it is an urgent situation, you can always call the police as well, who can respond immediately. So moving on to the next slide, I know Danielle spoke a little bit about the multi-agency screening team. And I know the focus of this conversation is around how to make a good referral, but I'll give you a bit of context to the team. So approximately we screen about 1,800 to 2,000 contacts a month. We use signs of safety, which is prevalent across all of North Yorkshire Children and Family Services. So we use signs of safety from the very beginning right to the closure records. We use information from the referral and share appropriate information within the team to make a decision on the next steps. So our team is multi-agency, as the name suggests. So we have partners from North Yorkshire Police and Harrogate District Foundation Trust, as well as social workers and early help workers that come together to figure out what next to do with a referral once it's landed on our desk. We don't do checks on every family. We don't ask police for information on families we don't need to, because that's disproportionate. And I'm sure you wouldn't want disproportionate checks being done on yourself, so we wouldn't do that to families. We would use police checks if maybe an anonymous referral comes in saying that granddad's a sex offender, and we need to double check that across this police's system to substantiate those concerns or not. Within MAST, they also review all child exploitation risk assessments. So that meeting happens 4 times a week, and they talk about children who've been subject to a risk assessment within Children and Family Service and decide whether it's low, medium or high risk or no risk, and have a conversation about what are the disruption plans around that. There's also a lot of information from those risk assessment discussions that are shared at MACE Level 2, which I'm sure a lot of you attend those locality meetings, because there might be some information about a location or an area of concern where a lot of young people go missing, for example, that we want local partners to be aware of and to action. We also review all domestic incidences across North Yorkshire, so whether they've been referred in as a safeguarding concern by the police or whether they haven't. In the cases that haven't been referred, a social work manager and a police officer within MAST will sit and have a look and see, is there actually any extra work that we need to do around that situation. We take calls on the consultation line, which Danielle spoke about going live in July. So that's been really interesting. We provide a lot of support mainly around consent or what to do next. And I just want to reiterate that it's not a way to make a referral. If we do have a conversation and we think it does need a referral, we'll still be asking you to complete the written referral form. We also provide support to the customer service centre, who are the team that sits in front of the MAST and upload all the contacts, take all the telephone calls. And we also do a lot of training to partners and invite partners in to observe what we do. So this is a breakdown of who's in MAST. So when you're having a look at who's in, bear in mind that we're reviewing as a group 2,000 contacts a month. So it's an incredibly busy day, but luckily the team work really, really well together. And I think they've been quite stable for several years. So everyone really understands each other's thresholds, which is very helpful. So it's all led by the one team manager with 2 other managers. We've got early help, business support, HDFT, North Yorkshire Police, and social workers and children and family workers. So what makes a good referral? First up, we have to think about why you'd be making a referral. And it's your responsibility to tell ourselves, Children and Family Services and MAST, if you believe or suspect that a child has suffered significant harm or is likely to suffer significant harm, or has developmental or welfare needs which are likely only to be met through provision of family support services. And that's with the agreement of the child's parent. So that means with consent. So I believe someone was asking a question about consent earlier. If the family don't consent to early help or child in need, and if we don't have evidence to suggest that it falls into the significant harm category, we're unable to progress with it. So what makes a really good referral starts before actually making the referral. We would expect that people talk to the family, and I reflect on if there was, say, maybe a child or a young person who was going to school and you noticed that they were a little bit dishevelled, they smelt a little bit, maybe didn't have clean socks or something, for example. What you might actually find, instead of jumping straight to the idea that maybe this child's being neglected, is maybe mum's struggling from COVID. She's lost her job as a result of COVID and what's happening, and they don't have enough money for hot water. So the kid, it's the middle of winter and he's not having showers. So it's really helpful to figure out what's happening for that family before jumping to a conclusion and thinking, I'll need to make a referral to social care. Be really honest and factual in what you're saying and what you're writing. It's really important that you're aware that information held about a child is that child's information. If that child requests it, we will share it with them. And it's very likely that as part of our conversations with parents is that details of the referral will be shared with that family. So I always tend to think about child's records almost like their memories, that's a snapshot in their time and they have the right to go back and read that and understand that. So be honest and factual about what you're seeing, what you're hearing. And we practice in MAST that we imagine we're writing about our own children. Think about the language that you're using. It's also really helpful that the language isn't vague or generalized. If you can give as much detail as possible about what you've seen or what you've heard and the evidence, that also makes it incredibly easy for us to then figure out what we do next. So when you're writing the referral, take your time, consider how you'd want the information about your own family to be recorded. It's some of the best referrals I read are where the practitioner, they might not have a full understanding about the full processes of children and families, and that's okay. But what I really want to see is how the practitioner thinks that child's life should be improved, and that can be through action. So it might be we would want little Johnny not to be shouted at by his dad when he returns late home from school. That's wonderful. Any information about what the child is saying about their referral or what their home situation is like is also really helpful. And it doesn't always have to be about the bad or concerning stuff. It can be about telling us about little Johnny loves going to football every Tuesday, because it gives a real holistic picture about that child and not just so focused on what the concerns are, because in every child's life there is something good that's going on, and we want to uncover that and create more of it. If you talk to people who are already involved, is there a children and families worker? Is there a voluntary sector worker who's working with the family? Who else is around that child? The universal referral form really lends itself to helping you ask those questions, and you can ask them as they're written in the referral form to figure out who's helping that child right then, because then that will be given to potentially an allocated worker who can build on those networks. And again, if you come across something where you're concerned, where a child is at immediate risk, please consider contacting the police either via 101 or 999, depending on the incident. And I'll just take this moment to plug the partnership intel sharing form. So there's a section at the bottom of the universal referral form which talks about how where the form is, and there's a 1-minute guide on the LSCP website as well. But essentially it's for information that gives you a bit of a niggle in your belly. You're not sure if you don't think it's a crime, you don't think you need an officer out there to go and investigate it, but you are maybe worried about a house that has lots of cars pulling up to it and lots of people leaving, and you suspect potentially drug dealing. I'm absolutely 100% happy to receive that referral from a children and families perspective, but don't forget to inform the police of that information. A lot of people get a little bit nervous that they might be outed as the source of that intel, but I can 100% ensure you that that doesn't happen. There's only a strict few people within the police that would be able to identify who the source is. So you are protected in that sense. And the partnership intel sharing form is so helpful for some of the exploitation concerns or gaps that we have. So please use that form. You can never use it too much. So consent, and this is always a biggie, and it's a tricky one because there is no set rule for what you should or shouldn't do. It is good practice that we work in partnership with families, and we tell families about our concerns, and we tell them with what we're going to do with their information. And I always think about what put myself in this situation. I would much rather someone come to me and tell me something about what they thought about me or the way that I look after children or the way that I present than going behind my back and telling somebody else, because I would fall out with that person. And that's what we sometimes see in referrals, that you lose a bit of trust with the family. Now, there are situations when you shouldn't tell the family about the referral that you're submitting, and that could be because it places the child at significant risk. And one of those scenarios might be a young person who's turned up at school and said, Dad said he's going to give me a hiding when I return. Now, the worry would be if you told the parent that they might go into school, we might lose an opportunity to go and speak to the child alone at school when they've got a protected few hours before it's home time and kind of get to the bottom of it. So those are the kind of situations that you've got a reason not to seek consent. I can't force you to seek consent. I can't refuse a referral, refuse to even accept it without consent. But what I would ask is that you're really careful in your recording about why you haven't sought consent and consider whether that's a good enough reason. Now, there are times where you might tell a parent that you're really worried about the home conditions and you'd like to tell social care because it's your duty as a professional. And that parent says, no, I don't want you to. It's fine. Please leave my house. You can still submit that referral, and best practice would be to tell that parent to say, I can hear what you're saying, but I still have concerns and it's my professional duty. So I'm recording that you're not wanting to work with social care, but I still feel the need to tell them. And record that in the universal referral form, record it with the covering email, however you need to, because that's also really important to know. So I know we've spoken a few times about signs of safety, so I won't harp on too much about this, but the referral form, it is structured under the titles of signs of safety. When we're talking about things that we're worried about, it's again really important to be factual. It's really helpful if you're able to talk about the first time you had the worry, the most recent or the last time you had the worry, and during that period, what was the biggest worry that you saw? So if we're talking about domestic abuse, for example, when was the first time you started noticing these worries? When was the last time you were told about the worries? And when was the worst time ever about domestic abuse that you can recall? Because that really helps the MAST almost graph how significant the concern is and what kind of outcome do we need. If it's only been happening for a short period and actually you're not too worried but you'd like someone to get in there, we can look at early help. Whereas if it's been going on for years and the impact on the kid is quite significant, he's wetting himself, etc., we're going to take a different outcome. So we're really at your mercy as in what you tell us. So in terms of strengths and safety, and I touched on this before, the universal referral form it leans more to what is the child's network. Who would the child say that they want to speak to about these worries? Who supports the kid when there's difficulties? Who stepped in when things weren't going so great before? Because that allows the allocated worker going forward to build on that strength, because essentially we want to increase more strength and reduce the risks and the worries. So again, scaling. So there is no right or wrong scaling answer for anyone. What I find the scaling question really helpful, not so much the actual numerical scale, more around what do you need to see as a professional for you to feel less concerned or to move up that scale by 1 or half a point? That's the real benefit of scaling, and that's the real beauty of it. And the universal referral form asks you those specific questions. They're the really helpful questions. And if I'm being honest, I go to the back of the universal referral form first before looking at the beginning. So what would be really helpful for screening? Again, what are your best hopes for children and families intervention? Sometimes we get feedback to say, oh, well, you didn't allocate this. Why not? It needs an allocation. I wanted this. But looking back at the form, it's just a deluge of information. It's copied and pasted from emails and a whole load of information, but no real direction. It's really difficult for us to understand what it is and your intent when we're not told what it is. I'd like to know what you want for the family and what do you want to change. And like I said, you don't need to know the nuances of what the processes of children and families are. You just need to have an understanding about how you want that child's life to be different or that family's life to be better. It's also really insightful when we get views of the parents. So there is a section around once you've obtained consent, what did mum or dad say or grandma say when you told them your worries? Were they happy? Were they waiting for someone to ask for support? Or did they shut you down and say, no, please, please, I don't want social workers in my life again? Because that allows our workers to pitch the right conversation. So what happens after a referral is made? So after it's uploaded onto the system, sent through to MAST, we've got a few decisions that we can make, and all of this happens in 1 working day. So we're looking at probably about 100 contacts a day. So it's quite a fast turnover. Where there isn't consent, we'll try and contact the family, but it's a short window to get that consent. And if they don't call back, that does have that does have an implication onto what we can and can't do next. So it is, again, really important that consent is obtained prior to it coming towards us. So there might be situations where we close the contact down as what we call information and advice, and that's because we feel that there's a different agency that can resolve that issue that isn't within children and family services, or we don't feel it meets threshold, or it's something that's been resolved. There'll be allocation to early help support. So that could be through to the early help team under 2C, or it could be reallocating it either back to the referrer or someone else that we've identified through screening as a potential lead professional. So that would be allocated through, I believe it goes through to the early help consultants to have those types of conversations. And I think there's approximately 200 to 300 types of those cases a day where we think, oh, the main issue is attendance issues here. I don't think we're at the threshold that we need targeted early help support. Another outcome would be through to the healthy child team. And then lastly, it would be through to our family assessment and support teams, either through for Section 17 support with consent, or whether we need to progress it through to a strategy meeting because we've suspected that the child could be suffering significant harm. So you should, as soon as you submit your referral, the CSC should send you an email that says, thank you very much, we've received your referral. If you don't get that, please follow it up, because we've had situations where people say they've submitted referrals, they haven't received the acknowledgement email, and it has never been received. So please follow it up. And then you should get a notification of the outcome of the contact, either from the team it has been allocated to, or in cases of information and advice, which I believe is about 25%, the notification will come through MAST. So there's lots and lots of information on the LSCP website. There's the referral guidance, which is a longer kind of summary of what I've just been through. There's the actual referral form. I believe there's a 1-minute guide for both the consultation line and what MAST do. And then there's also the partnership intel sharing form. So I'm hopeful I'm under time-ish, as I imagine there might be a few questions from people.
Thanks very much, Jess. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. One was around what place do health have in this, and I'm assuming this means within MAST. Myself and family workers require significant input from health, and we're struggling to make ongoing contact to receive what we need.
I'm not sure I understand the question, as in what place health have in screening. We have a designated safeguarding nurse who sits within the MAST, and should there be queries about health, for example, there might be an allegation that the child is not, there's some worries about neglect. So health might do a check with the GP to see how many times the child has gone to the health appointments, for example. Is that the type of question you're asking? Because I'm not sure what you mean by struggling to make ongoing contact to receive what we need.
I know that obviously there's been changes to the Healthy Child programme in terms of how that service is commissioned. We'll wait to see if the individual could just add a little bit more detail and maybe come back to that question. In terms of seeing a couple of points around cross-border, so what contacts do you consider cross-border? We have many children who live in West Yorkshire, and then someone else has put, if a family resides outside of an area, is there a referral automatically forward to the correct children and family service? We've experience of this a couple of times, i.e. living on the border of two different local authorities.
So we I'm not sure where other agencies would be able to see the border, but our CSC do have the border maps, and they're able to put in the postcode and see which is the best authority to respond to that concern, and they do forward on to West Yorkshire, or whichever local authority it might be, but they would also notify you of what they've done or what they're asking you to do. So that would be the acknowledgement of receipt of referral, which is done manually. It's not an automated response, it's an actual person that's replied it to you. So they would have forwarded it on if they've told you they have, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's answered the question. Thank you. So just going back to the question that we previously had around the health element, just to clarify, we need medical professionals to give their information and views on the state of a child's health. This is required before stepping up to early help, but we can't get the information. What are the best ways to include health?
So that doesn't sound like it would come to MAST. I wonder if there's someone from health on the call that could help Miss Appleton with that question, because it sounds like, is this to do with an EHCP, or is this to do with, because I know from a social care perspective in early help, we would make a request of the GP with the consent of the parent to say, please, can we have this information for this purpose?
I think we can maybe get Miss Appleton's details and maybe follow that up directly with a little bit more information to help it. I'm kind of reading it in terms of you're struggling to get information from our health colleagues. So it's maybe looking at just ensuring you've got the right details to get the right information and make those linkage between those. But that's something we can take outside. And we will capture all of your questions and provide a bit of a frequently asked question sheet to accompany the 3 sessions that we've done, because there's been some really good questions and we've been able to answer the majority, if not all of them, over the last 3 sessions. One
James,
question,
can I just be really rude and just butt in really
sure.
quickly, just to clarify that the referral is made to the authority of where the child is a usual resident. I just see that, so for a child in a North Yorkshire school, we will refer to North Yorkshire even if they live in West Yorkshire. No, it's where it's their residency. So if they live in West Yorkshire, you refer to West Yorkshire.
Thanks for clarifying that, Jess. One question was just around Operation Encompass. So for those that don't know about Op Encompass, is a domestic abuse notification that goes to schools direct from the police. They're saying that Op Encompass is really helpful to alert us within school of these incidents. However, we found that others, including early help and social workers, are not always aware what they are. I suppose the answer to that is in terms of making sure that we as a partnership are constantly promoting Op Encompass along with our colleagues in the police and education, and making sure that people have that awareness of what that process is, and equally what to do with the information that people receive. I don't know if there's anything else on Op Encompass, Jess, that you'd like to add.
No, it's sort of, I think it all comes from the police. Social care don't get notifications of Op Encompass because we get it a different way. It's a way that the police communicate with education and 0 to 5 healthy child team, I believe, to notify them. And it's just a notification. It's for your awareness. There's no request for action unless you think it's appropriate. As many of you have seen, it's literally an incident has happened around this child. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And just in terms of clarity around social workers from Disabled Children's Services, they're the ones maybe that don't have that particular knowledge. But as I say, we can recirculate that information so that people are aware of Op Encompass. Can there be any more details given about Op Encompass? As often we don't know which residents. That's something that we would need to follow up directly with the police in terms of the information that they share with schools. So I'll pick that one up outside of the session today. We have got some information around Op Encompass, and there is a national Op Encompass helpline that education can use if they've got any particular queries or concerns, and they can get in touch with them. So without further ado, we will try and answer all of your questions either in the chat or after the session, but I'd like to move us now on to the Solihull approach, which I'd like to welcome Rachel, who's a senior early help consultant, to take us through the next steps.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I'm here to talk about something that we've just procured through North Yorkshire, which on a 3-year multi-user licence, that's something that you can all use and signpost on your families to use the services that we've got. They are online parenting courses in modular form, a full raft of different courses that are available. It says there for parents and carers and families. We can include anybody within the network of those children and young people. So it could be their grandparents, it could be if they're from separated homes, we have both parents, it could be foster carers, care leavers, anybody who would like to access it. And also yourself as services as well will be able to sign up and use these sessions. Why we've done this is because partly during the pandemic, where we haven't been able to deliver face-to-face parenting courses, we needed to find something that could help to plug that gap. And so we devised the virtual sessions that our workers are still delivering. We still do have incredible years. We do still have family links on offer. But also we were identifying that an awful lot of inquiries we were getting in terms of early help assessments and casework, there's an element of parenting in there, and parenting support is something that we're asked for time and time again. So anybody can have these courses, as I say, they can have access to them. They don't need to be an open case, doesn't need to be part of an action plan. Everybody on the call will be able to signpost people onto them. They are in modules, like I say, each one takes about 20 minutes and there are 11 modules per session. So it can be done in a lunch break, it can be done in an evening, at a time when the families or the learners wish to access it. In terms of information that we get as a local authority, we don't get any personal information shared with us whatsoever. All we get are the demographics, basic demographic information, such as the postcode area where people have logged on from. We also get the ages of the learners and the ages of their children, their gender, and we ask where they've heard about the course for. The reason why we ask for gender as well is because these are very male-centred courses as well, so that they that absolutely we need all family members to be able to get on board. And we get those details so that we can just audit where we have been delivering most of the courses to, and just to help us inform moving forward. Next slide, please, James. This is an example of the publicity that we have around Solihull parenting. Hopefully a lot of you will have seen this already. It's been circulated by the early help consultants and other partner agencies from our working group, including health, to try and get people aware of this. All you need to access it is a North Yorkshire postcode. And as I say, you can have multiple people that use that same postcode. So if you wanted to use it within your setting, you could do. And the access code, NY Families, that just needs to be entered into the front page, and then it will give you access to all of the courses that are available. And they are available in different languages as well, if that's something that would be of interest to you. Next slide, please, Jane.
Most of us probably think we're doing okay with our parenting. We're in control most of the time, we're surviving. But how many of us just occasionally get that nagging feeling that we could be doing something a little bit better? Who wouldn't love to be able to stop and clear a space, devote a bit of time to focus on this most rewarding, challenging and important part of our lives? Going along to a group can be fantastic. You can make friends and learn with others, but life's so busy and going along to a group can be daunting. So there might be loads of reasons why going along isn't for you. Now there's another option. The Understanding Your Child online course is for everyone who's curious to find out about the latest research into what works in parenting, and how to help children have the best chances of being able to manage their emotions in adulthood. Knowing how to handle your feelings effectively, which psychologists call self-regulation, really is the key to happiness and a future free from mental health difficulties. And it starts in childhood, in the interactions between parents and their children. All you need is 20 minutes a couple of times a week. That's a few tea breaks or a lunchtime or two. There are 11 sessions to complete and you can do them at a pace that suits you. The course works on PCs, Macs, laptops and iPads. And you might like to have access to a printer so that you can download and print off the notebook that accompanies the course, but that's not absolutely essential. The course is interactive and surprisingly fun. I really like the fact that you get to click on different parts of the page to activate different things. It's full of fascinating content and really clever devices to get you to think about how this latest research applies to you and your family. The Understanding Your Child online course is for everyone who wants to be the best mum or the best dad they can be, and through their relationship with their child, teach them how to manage themselves, how to behave well, and ultimately give them the best chance of being happy in life.
We went live with this in mid-May. Up until the end of May, we got our first user report, which says we have 204 service users registered, and out of that we have 130 actual learners. And of those who have completed the courses, we have 100% satisfaction rate, where they say the courses have been really helpful, or they will definitely signpost on and promote it to other people. So that's really positive. Some of the courses are detailed on the slide for you to be able to see at this moment in time. And the most popular courses so far have been Understanding Your Baby, Understanding Your Child, Understanding Your Child with Additional Needs, and one that's not detailed on this postcard is the Teenager's Brain course, but it's for the actual teenagers to be able to register on for themselves, and that's proving really popular. And there is a promotional video about that can be shared if you want that as well. I would urge you to be sharing this on social media, within your newsletters, within your different networks, so that we can get this out far and wide.
What's different about the Solihull approach? Welcome to Understanding Your Child, the course designed by the Solihull approach team and based on our highly successful face-to-face course.
As a parent, you already know a great deal about your child. What's different about the Solihull approach is that it applies key messages from research to add to your understanding of your child. You will find more ways to think about what your child is telling you through their behaviour. You will also find more ways to think about your relationship with your child. Whatever age your child is, this added understanding may help as you go through life, with all the unexpected situations that crop up as your child grows up. The course begins by taking a look at how your child's brain develops and how this is linked to your relationship. It explains the concepts of containment and reciprocity and looks at how these are part of your relationship, which in turn is part of your child learning how to self-regulate or manage themselves. The course shows how this is the foundation for behaviours such as sleeping or being angry. The course looks at your child's feelings, but starts with your feelings as a parent. Click Next to reflect on how being a parent makes you feel.
So how can you help? Basically, I'm appealing to you to be able to get the message out there, to be able to look at the courses yourself, register your establishments on them as well, signpost all parents, grandparents, everybody who you feel that these may be beneficial to. If somebody comes along to you and says that they have got some concerns about their parenting or their child's behaviour, this may well be the first tool that you go to, that you can signpost them onto these before we even need to think about completing the early health assessment. It really is early intervention that we're offering this. We then obviously have all the subsequent parenting, accredited parenting courses, etc., that we can signpost onto. Yes, I've just seen a question, can they be accessed by mobile phone? Absolutely they can. They're all web-based, so all you need is the internet, unfortunately, which we know could be a barrier to people, but we are in talks with libraries so that they can use the computers within the libraries to be able to access them as well. I've got lots of publicity that I can share with people if need be, so that it can be circulated on social media. My details are on the slide, so please do get in touch with me if you have any queries or would like any more information. Thank you. That's my little bit done, James.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And yeah, just two questions really. One around mobile phone, which you've answered in terms of it's accessible on any platform, and one that Barbara's also answered just in terms of if someone lives out of the authority area, can they use the school postcode? And Barbara said yes, that's fine for them to use that.
Absolutely.
Postcode.
The multi-user license is just for North Yorkshire residents, but as you say, you can use it where the place where they go to the education.
That's great. Thank you very much. So that's concluded our session. I don't know if we've got any particular final questions that are in the chat. I don't see any that have just come through recently. Hopefully we've been able to impart some information in terms of what the new document is and kind of ensuring how you can play a part to make sure that we get the right support at the right time by the right professional to that children and family. So thank you very much for joining us. I'll give you 3 minutes of free time before your probably next meeting at past. So I hope that you have a lovely afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you very much.